Today we have a very, very special honor that our community has. And it's not often, on contrary, it's almost never that we have an opportunity like today. And we should all be very proud to be living in Dallas today and to be students at Jewish day schools and yeshivas in our community. We just came from President Bush's office, where the Rav and myself met with President Bush for what was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. It turned out to be an hour and a quarter. It was an amazing, amazing meeting in which we talked about living history, both the Rav's history, President Bush's history, President Bush's love and commitment for the state of Israel, for the Jewish people. The Rav expressed great appreciation on behalf of the state of Israel and the Jewish people for everything that President Bush had done on behalf of our people. And it was a very uplifting meeting, very warm. I want to take a moment and ask all of you to look around the room. I do this every time. Last time we had a guest like this as well. Look around the room, look to your right, look to your left, look behind you, look at the students in the room. And what you'll notice is something very, very unique in our Jewish community. All of us as Jews don't necessarily daven the same way. Some of them have different nusach. We have nusach Ashkenaz, nusach Sfard. We do different davening, different minhagim, different ways. But one thing is that we're all Jews. And if you look, you'll see young people here that have a kippah sruga or a black velvet kippah. And there's even people in the room who aren't even wearing a kippah. And that's because they're girls. We all come together today to hear someone, though, that we can all look to as a light of Torah and a light as a leader, a great leader in our people. And for that, we're very grateful. Rabbi Lau, those of you who know, many of you have learned about him, know who he is the 38th generation of rabbis, uninterrupted. The only chief rabbi in the history of Israel whose son also is now chief rabbi of Israel. It's a great zchus for us to have him with us today. And I ask you all to please rise again for Chief Rabbi Israel Meir Lau.
Good morning. I'm the first time in my life in Dallas, Texas. First time, and I'm so privileged and really happy to meet with you, to see your faces, to know that you exist, to know that you are together under the same ceiling, under the same roof. I'm more than happy I can share with you all what I feel about this meeting, which is for me the most important meeting. I hope that President George W. Bush will forgive me if I will say that this meeting is for me even more important, really, with you. How many Jews are there in the world? 13 million, 14 million, I'm afraid no more. That's what we are. 1940, we were 75 years ago, we were already 18 million. Holocaust, we lost the third part of the Jewish people, 6 million of 18. We stayed 12. We are now between 13 to 14 million Jews only. What makes all these millions a nation? Jewish. What does it mean? Nationality? Not at all. In the front of the building of the United Nations on the East River in New York City, Manhattan, you have 193 different flags representing all the nations who are members of the United Nations. 193. 190 of them, they are Jews, citizens. Even North Korea, not only South Korea, they are Jewish citizens. Pyongyang as in Seoul. Nigeria, Liberia, Zimbabwe, wherever in Africa, you had Jewish people, even in synagogue, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Kenya, wherever. What makes them in one nation? Nationalities, passports, 190 different passports. Language. Unfortunately, the majority of the Jewish people don't speak yet Hebrew. English is not a language of all of them, and English is not unique for the Jewish people, as you know. Or French, or Spanish, or German, or Russian, whatever. We don't share the same language, we don't share the same nationality, we don't carry the same passports, mentality. I'm not sure that a Jew from Helsinki, Finland, and a Jew in Bnei Brak in Israel, and a Jew in Casablanca in Morocco are the same mentality. They think the same, they behave the same, they are quite different. And still they are one nation. What makes them a nation? The answer is very simple, and the only answer. Shema Israel, Kaddish, all say the same words, word by word. All the movements and all the parties, they say, when they say Kaddish, they say the same, Yitgadal v'yitkadash me'erabav, Oseh Shalom b'bromav, say same Shema. They lit the candles of Shabbat. They will have, in very few weeks, the night of Passover, Leila Seder. They will eat matzot and sing Vehi She'amda and ask Mi Echad Mi Yodea. The same story of Exodus from slavery to freedom, they will share the same story. They lit the same candle of Hanukkah in the Hebrew date of Hanukkah, not somewhere in December or in January. In the 25th of Kislev, La'adlik Ner Hanukkah, Yimatityahu, Judah the Maccabee, the story, the same. Oriental, European, from Asia, from Africa, from Australia, from Hong Kong to San Francisco, from east to west. And the same day, they sit at the table of Pesach and they lit the same candle of Hanukkah, Brit Milah, circumcision, Bar Mitzvah or Bar Mitzvah, Chuppah v'Kiddushin, Kedat Moshe v'Yisrael. This is the only thing which makes us a nation. Heritage, tradition, nothing but. You can be more orthodox or less orthodox, but still, if you are identified Jewish, you respect your heritage. You pay tribute to the old tradition. And this makes you for a nation. Nothing but that. Nothing but that. We call ourselves Am Israel. Not only because of the state of Israel. Before the state of Israel was established 67 years ago, we are 4,000 years, Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, people of Israel, living in the land of Israel, the biblical land, Eretz Israel, and we worship the Elokei Israel, the God of the Jewish people. Why from all the fathers and the mothers we have chosen the name Israel? Why Israel? Why aren't we Am Avraham? He was the first father, the ancient father. From all the patriarchs, we have chosen Jacob with the name, the second name, Israel. Why Israel? Why not Sarah? If I would have a cupboard here with a piece of chalk, I would write the letters of the name Israel. How many letters is it in Hebrew? 5 letters. In English, it's 6 or 7. It depends if you make it with a Y or an I without a Y. My name is Israel, so I have all kinds of writings. Israel with I, Israel with an O, with an A. In the Hebrew, in the Torah, in the scroll, you find the name Israel, 5 Hebrew letters. Yud, Sin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed. Look at the 5 letters of Israel. They are initials of all our past. The Yud is the first letter of Yitzchak and Yaakov. The Sin, the first letter of Sarah. The Resh is the initial of Rivka and Rachel. Aleph for Avraham and Lamed left for Leah. Shlosha mi yodea, 3 fathers. Arba mi yodea, the 4 mothers. All the 7 patriarchs and matriarchs, our fundament, the basis of the Jewish people, all the 7 create the name Israel. Israel Yeshmecha. This will be your name. When we say, I am Am Israel, I belong to Am Israel Chai, I say I'm going to follow the footsteps of my ancient fathers and mothers. Listen to the Torah of your father, says King Solomon, and don't forget the morals of your mother. Shma beni musar avicha ve'al titosh Torah timecha. Don't neglect the Torah, the lessons, studying of your mother even. And when we speak about Am Israel, we speak about the history of the Jewish people, about the nationality which is in our old heritage. And the names of the fathers, of the mothers, they are the fundament of the Jewish people. Without them, who are we? What are we? I want to share with you, I think there is no space anymore here. No one empty chair. Maybe they just escaped from the rain. I want to share with you one short story from my childhood, which shows at the end of it how important it is to study and to know and to be educated in the Jewish heritage. It was just after World War II. We were liberated in a concentration camp in Germany called Buchenwald. A few weeks later, we were taken to a sanatorium in France. We have met there survivors, also orphanages, only orphanages. No father, no mother, from Bergen-Belsen, another concentration camp in Germany, east and west of Germany. We were together in that sanatorium in France. Écouilly is the name of the village. And there we had to decide, wohin soll ich gehen, which means in Jewish, tell me where shall I go. No home, everything was destroyed. No place where to go, no parents. Some have decided to stay in France. Some have immigrated even to the United States of America. They had some relatives there already. And mainly they went to the land of Israel before the establishment of the Jewish state, 1945. We were there about 220 children, from 8, I was the youngest I think, till 21. There was a lady, Mrs. Mintz, Polish from her background, but she spoke beautiful French, she lived in France. She was the mother. Once upon a day in the lunchtime, we were spent there about a month. She asked us to be on 4 o'clock on the grass in the center of the village because we have to welcome very important guests. The mayor of the city, Écouilly, not Jewish, the high officer of the army, of the police, the leadership of the area. They want to grace us, to welcome us. One of the boys, who was about 20 already, stood up and said spontaneously, "Mrs. Mintz, we will not be there. We are very upset. We are very angry about those people. Now they come to visit us, to welcome us, to take pictures with us. Where were they 6 years when our parents were slaughtered, burnt in the flames, died in the chamber, in the gas chambers? Now we see the newspapers of the last 6 years. They didn't say a word. They kept silent. They enabled it. We have nothing to do with them. We are going to Eretz Israel. We will not be there 4 o'clock. She knew that they keep the sanatorium. She said, but they will give you a present. Every one of you will receive a personal present. For a child who didn't receive a present 6 years, for the first time, his name will be on a package, whatever will be, a book or a soap or a chocolate, whatever. It's something. The boy said, we don't need their favor, we don't need them at all, we don't know to know them. We are going to Eretz Israel. They are not in our interest. The last word was, she said, okay, do it for me. I ask you a favor. We appreciated her devotion. She went out of the dining room. We have decided we will be there, but we will not cooperate. We will not give them hands. We will not even look at them, but we will be there on the grass. There is a picture in the Paris Match, an illustrated magazine in France, 20 years later, 1965, telling about us, about the children of Buchenwald, and you see a picture, a lady stands by a microphone, some people without uniform sitting on a bench near her, and from the podium you see dozens of heads, shaved heads, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. You don't see faces. You see only shaved heads. This is the picture. That's what they saw from the stage. She introduced each of them, Mr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, General. They spoke very short, a minute, half a minute. They understood they have no ears here, no one pays attention to them. Then she said, the last speaker will be Mr. Leibovich. Mr. Leibovich is also a survivor. He survived Auschwitz. He lost his wife and his children there. His business in textile was in France before the war. He came to France after the war immediately, and he had dedicated all his time, all his energy, and all his capital, all his money for orphanages of the Holocaust, like they were his children. He wants to give you his blessing. He's one of the sponsors of this sanatorium. Spontaneously, 220 heads lifted up and gave him a look and a feeling that he's one of us. We have no reason to demonstrate against Leibovich. He's one of us, a survivor. He was very excited to come to Ekui. He was not a speaker, an orator, not at all. And all of a sudden, when he saw these over 200 couples of eyes looking at him with such solidarity, with such a sympathy and warmth, he was so excited that he couldn't say his few words he had on a piece of paper. Only he trembled this microphone and said 3 words only in Yiddish. Kinder! Kinder with children in Yiddish. Teure Kinder! Dear children! And he couldn't say any word more, and he started to cry in the microphone. Mrs. Mintz stood up, took him in his arm and said, Mr. Leibovich, you did your speech already. Sit down, relax. And here happened something strange. 200 boys, everyone felt all of a sudden that his checks are wet. And he is crying. Solidarity with Leibovich. Everyone was ashamed to cry. We were the heroes. We were survivors. We were adults. Even in the age of 8, we had to behave like elderly people. What means to cry like children? We are not kids. But we could bear it. And one broke out with a loudy cry. And this gave the sign to everyone, and we started to cry openly, free. We gave tears. It was a valley of tears that moment, that we, maybe 5 minutes, it's a long time. Over 200 boys crying. No one said a word. And then one of us stood up. He was from the old Goabais, 20 till 21, Aaron. I didn't know his last name, Aaron. On behalf of my friends, even I didn't ask their permission, but I'm sure that I represent them, I want to thank you. Not to thank for the visit, we didn't ask for you. Not to thank about for the presents, we didn't ask them. We want to thank you for one present you gave us, a beautiful present, the power, the ability to cry. 6 years that I didn't cry. When they slaughtered my father in my very eyes, I was 16 years old. I kept myself from crying. I was frozen. I was starving. I was beaten. I didn't give the Gestapo, the Nazis, I didn't give the pleasure of making me crying. I didn't cry. I kept myself. After the liberation, a few weeks ago, I thought all the time that I'm not a human being anymore. And instead of a heart of flesh and blood, I have here a stone in my chest. So I'm not a human being. Who will marry me? Well, how shall I be once a father, to have a family of my own? No parents, no brother, no sister. No one will marry me. I'm not a human being. 5 minutes ago, I have discovered that I can cry. And I know the secret. The one who can cry today has a chance to laugh tomorrow. And if I can cry and laugh, means I am a human being. For this present, I want to thank you. We cry. We are nature. We are part of mankind, not animals anymore. And before I sit down on the grass, I want to tell you, and that's what Aaron said. As a child, I used to go every summer vacation to Warsaw, the capital city of Poland, where my grandfather lived. He was a great scholar. He had the business of his own stall, but in the afternoon he used to take me to go on the river, the Wisla, and to teach me Bible, Tanakh. He taught me. I had to learn it by heart, and he tested me a day later. Even the last summer before World War II broke out, 1939, it broke out on the 1st of September. July and August, I was with my grandfather. I forgot everything I learned from him. 6 years that I didn't open a book. I didn't see a book. But one chapter I remember, because I repeated it to myself every night before I fell asleep. Wherever I was, in the wagons, in the forests, in the concentration camps, in the ghetto, one chapter. And he started to say it in Hebrew. Then he translated it in Polish. The hand of the God, Lord Almighty, was upon me. And I was in a valley full of bones, very many bones, dry bones. And the Lord asked me, will they live? I said, only you know the answer. Chapter 37 of Ezekiel, the prophecy about the dry bones. And all of a sudden they came one to the other. And then they stood up. A great army, great unit. These dry bones, says the Lord to the prophet, these are the symbol of the Jewish people. They say we have no chance anymore. We are helpless. No hope anymore. So I want to tell you, I will open your graves, O my people, and I will lift you up out of your graves, O my people, and I will take you to the land of Israel. Aaron finished and said, we are the dry bones. I owe my survival to the lessons of my grandfather. This kept me alive. I never lost chance. I never lost hope. I was never depressed. I suffered from all kinds of sufferings, lonely as I was. But this chapter of the prophet, this promise of the Lord Almighty, kept me alive and kept me Jewish. And I was sure that a day will come, I will see the light in the end of the dark tunnel. Thank you very much. That's what he said. And he said, 50 years, I didn't know what happened to that Aaron who was on the same boat with me. First Olim Chadashim, new immigrants to the land of Israel in 1945. We were the first legitimate Olim. Only boys, only orphanages. He was one of them, but I never had this talk with him. 15 years ago, 17 years ago, I was chief rabbi of Israel at the time in Yerushalayim. There was a terror event in the coffee house of Sparrow near Jerusalem, Yafo, corner King George. 50 victims, one family. I officiated the wedding of these parents, Tzira and Moti. Scheves Churdel, he was an immigrant from Holland, from Dutch. The two parents and 3 children of them were killed in the same bombing. And 2 sisters were hardly injured, Leale and Chayale, 10 years old and 8 years old. I went to visit them in the hospital after the funeral. And the professors who went with me in Hadassah in Karen, they explained me the situation of each of the injured people there, who has a chance, who, God forbids, no chance anymore, who is going out an invalid. And we stood in the corridor of the hospital, next to the emergency room of the surgery department. The professors and myself, we closed the passage. A guy came from my backside, asking, Slicha, forgive me. may I cross here the corridor? We went to both sides. He passed. Then he looked at me. Said, Rabbi Lau? Said, yes. Shalom. I am Aaron. Said to him, Aaron? What Aaron? Aaron of Écuyer in France. Said, Aaron of the dry bones? Said, how do you remember? I said, how can I forget? He's one of the heads of Hadassah Hospital in Ankara. Aaron Landsberg, 50 years after that speech, which I will never forget. He said to me, you see, I told you then that the prophecy of Ezekiel, the dry bones, kept me during the 6 years. It's still keeping me alive the last 50 years. I am in Yerushalayim. I assist people. I'm here in the hospital in Hadassah. I save lives, Jewish lives. Everything because of the lesson I received from my grandfather at the river, the Wisla in Warsaw. So I just told you one of my experiences in life. The lesson of it is very clear. What you study here, what you learn here, what you have a part of the Jewish, very beautiful heritage, this gives us not only knowledge about the past, but also a brilliant and happy future. I wish you all, we say L'Shana Haba'a B'Yerushalayim Habnuya. Some of you I met or I will meet in the March of the Livings from Auschwitz to Birkenau and the day of Holocaust. I am there since 1988. I never missed even one march, stayed so far. From there, we go to Israel to a visit. I hope that you will be full of jealousy and full of pride, knowing who you are, knowing your identification, and to be a part of the unbroken chain, the golden chain of Am Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Lau, for beautiful, beautiful words and your inspirational message. I know that on behalf of the students, we are so grateful to you to take time out of your schedule. Rabbi Lau is missing the Brit Milah of a great-grandchild this week to be with us this week. I think another grandchild was born. No, one great-grandchild, right?
Great-grandchild.
Great-grandchild. So.